Chair Burning,
Present.
Vice Chair Counter,
Present.
Supervisor Long,
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler, Supervisor Shirley.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The minutes, are there any changes or amendments to the minutes? Supervisor Long,
I downloaded the minutes or the packet and they weren't in the packet, the minutes, or did I download the wrong thing?
We can carry those over and we'll add them next month for approval.
So we shouldn't really approve them if we haven't had a chance to review.
Correct.
Not
Yep.
that they aren't correct, but.
Yep. Nope, I see that they're not attached to the file here. So,
Okay, with that, the minutes will be moved to the next meeting for approval. Public comment. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing nobody in the crowd for public comment, we'll close that portion and we'll move on to business items. Number 1, financial report for November 2024. Ken, or Supervisor, or Administrator Witt.
yeah, I go by any of those. The packet in the agenda packet reflects through November. So basically, when I scroll through and I look at it, we're pretty much on target with where we should be. One of the things that we've been watching is the sales tax. And, you know, the November one was a strong month, right in line with where we were. Year to date, we're trailing just a little bit behind where we were, about $200,000 behind where we were last year, which will put us on track for where we need to be, considering the conservative budgeting that we had done going into this calendar year. And then the KIP and the ARPA projects, you can see a lot of those are closing out as all those projects are wrapping up. Any questions on anything, though?
Supervisor Counter, go ahead.
Just a couple, I'm trying to remember if this is where you're talking about. Two things. One that I was looking at in the budget, it's being that we're getting closer to the end of the year and things too. Are we kind of on track with the two areas, medical insurance? Is things been stabilized with, it's not the insurance so much, but our claims and things, do you see them? It looked like they were actually, things were coming down a little bit in that area.
Yeah, so that's the page that I have up on the screen for you. It's 1535 cost center. So the line that we're looking at really for that is the insurance premiums and claims cost. And while it looks like a balance of 2.6 million remaining, the way claims work is they're incurred in December, but they don't get paid till January, February. We take those and we pull those back into December then. And so you always look really good at the end of the year, and then the January and the February bills come in and we book them back. So December is a really high month always for us. And then January, you're only paying for bills that are billed in January and incurred in January. So January always looks really low. So I would say we're about on track to where we were last year. I don't think it's going to be much lower than that. So it's not continuing to go up, but it's also not going back down to where it was the prior year.
Sure. Then the other one was on the workman's comp I was looking at.
Yep, and that one is not going to be good either. That one we will finish in the red on. We're there a little bit right now, and so it's just a matter of the cost of the claims of where we're at compared to budget. So, I mean, we're going to be in the red, but I mean, we're going to be in the red by a little bit. It'll be under 10%, but yeah.
Is there anything, you know, as I'm looking at that, anytime I see that we're going negative in those areas, are we, is there any need to associate any programs or things that help to alleviate, to try to, as a stopgap for that? Or do you see that we're doing what we need to do there and it's just fluke things that are happening?
Yeah. Well, on the training one, or the workman's comp one, the new training position we have in HR could potentially benefit from some of that. Audrey and I haven't talked in a lot of detail about all the different trainings, but some of them could be safety trainings, which would help avoid accidents with employees and be able to improve that. As far as the health insurance, not really. I think we're doing a lot. We've implemented a lot of different programs and cost-saving measures over the last 5 years. The on-site clinic is the new thing we're doing for 2025 there. So I think we're doing everything and have done everything we can to try to mitigate those costs.
Then the last question with that, sometimes on the workman's comp and the health measures, does the county incorporate any type of programs for exercise or other things that can get people so that they become more rounded, so when they get out and they're doing things, they're less susceptible for medical issues?
Yeah, well, we like the employees to be less round, but.
Well, wrong wording, sorry about that.
I couldn't resist that one. That was too easy, Scott. So we do have health and wellness benefits in that we provide a $300 incentive to employees to take on health and wellness activities on their own. So that could be sports memberships, gym membership, health and wellness equipment, things like that.
Sure.
So, yep, we have
Okay.
programs like that also.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the administrator? Supervisor Shirley.
I just had a question on the ARPA page. I believe in our last county board meeting, or the one before, we added something to that for that, that's not on the list there. Is that correct? Yeah, the discretionary fund.
Yeah, I think we were going to tack it on to one, but we may not have adjusted this spreadsheet yet.
The government center HVAC construction, isn't it?
Well, it's going to come out of that, well, yes and no. It's going to come either out of that or out of the other programs that close. They close here in, 14 days, which I'm very much looking forward to. But we were going to add 200,000, it's contract with partner organizations. It's going to be added to that line.
Okay.
That's where we're going to add it. It's just, it is not reflected yet on the change on this.
And then,
But that's the line that it'll change. That line will continue into the next year.
I'm assuming the negative balance that's shown in there will just get deducted from the last line item for the HVAC, correct?
Yep, not out of HVAC. It's going to be these other ones that are closing out.
Okay.
So we will end up closing these. So if you look at where some of them are, like the contract with partner organizations, never mind that we're going to add some money and do more of that. But there's a $94,000 balance. In all of the first 3 quarters, we spent $27,000. So I mean, we're going to spend like $10,000 to $15,000 of that 94. So I mean, $80,000 will be there. I know that the rest of the numbers will all balance out. And you'll see a report in early 2025 that shows 2 lines left open. It's the behavioral health peer recovery specialist. We're contracting with Northwest Passage for that. And it'll be the contract with partner organizations for the $200,000 that'll be left over. And those will both be spent in 2025 and then finally closed out to zero. But those will be the only 2 left open into the new year.
Are there any other questions for the administrator? Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to number 2, which is resolution amending personnel policies. Audrey.
So we have 3 policies here. So the IT acceptable use, we wanted to add a definition regarding remote access and more so regarding hotspot usage, network security, and the use of public Wi-Fi to make sure that we're keeping our data safe and not putting ourselves at risk for security breaches. The next one, jury and witness leave. We removed the reference to the witness leave because the civil leave policy that we already have in place also references witness leave. So this one will just maintain jury duty. The main differences there is that we wanted to redefine the procedure of how the county does the reimbursement, or the expectation from the employees to reimburse the county for their court-provided wages and how they should do that. We also added a maximum pay of 8 hours per missed shift from work and a return to work expectation. And on the last one for benefits, we added a section regarding the health savings accounts that were added for 2024. And then update that's coming for 2025 is that we're updating the employer-sponsored life insurance benefit from a maximum of $100,000 to $150,000.
Are there any questions regarding this, or is there a motion to bring it forward?
I'll move to approve the amendment, amending the personnel policies.
Is there a second? Motion by Long, second by Shirley. Discussion. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those favoring the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Resolution is approved unanimously. Number 3, resolution establishing St. Croix County legislative priorities. Administrator Witt, if you'd take it.
Thank you, Chair Burning. So this was from the exercise that you did, and we have background that staff was able to provide. It gives you just more in-depth onto each of those different items. The one, though, that I will point out was the third one, item 45, allowing expert witnesses to appear by video conference in certain civil actions to enhance judicial efficacy or efficiency. So in speaking with the clerk of courts on that, who talked to the judges, they feel that they already have the ability to do this on a case-by-case basis. So this one may not be a priority at the same level of the other ones. So it came from your exercise, so I left it in, but I would kind of recommend that maybe you take a second look at that one and determine whether you wanted to maintain that one or pull that one from the list.
Go ahead, Supervisor Long.
When you say they may have the ability, so is it they're pretty confident, or they?
Yeah, I think they have the ability to do that. So it's their decision whether they do it or not. I don't think our judges do it very often. They prefer people to be in person in court, but I think they have the ability to do it if they deemed it necessary for the court.
Go ahead, Supervisor Fiedler.
Just on that same point, and perhaps I would direct it to the corporate counsel, as I understood the reasoning behind this last year, because this was a big issue last year down at the legislative branch, it primarily dealt with rural counties in Wisconsin, and primarily with psychiatrists and their testimony. Does that same comment about our judges' perceptions of their powers extend to that part of a trial?
Yes, and so currently in Chapter 51, which is the mental health commitment statute of Wisconsin statutes, there is a provision that allows expert to testify remotely via Zoom or telephone, and that has been in the statutes for a while and case law. I think the reason this was on the list is because some rural counties and some judges don't really like Zoom, and so this was going to be more of a mandate in the statutes that the experts shall be mandated to be allowed to appear via Zoom instead of it being in the judge's discretion. But our judges here, in terms of our Chapter 51 cases, our psychiatrists and psychologists are mostly from Winnebago when we have hearings, and they have never denied a request for a psychiatrist or psychologist to appear via Zoom. They understand that they have, several hearings that they probably have to do in a row, and it's most efficient. Otherwise, we would not have any evaluators available to even perform the evaluations for our cases. So the judges here understand, and I think a lot of judges around the state do, but that's what I think this specific item was added to the list for.
Expert witness, not the judges.
Correct. It's the benefit to the expert witnesses, not specifically the judges.
Are there any other questions? Any further discussion? Yes, Supervisor Long?
I had a question on the very first item, 71. And I'm kind of assuming that that is really describing this whole issue of transporting people across state to Winnebago. I'm wondering if it might be helpful to our legislators to be a little more specific in our explanation as to the costs that we're actually incurring and the impact that that is having. Because I read through that, and at least it wasn't apparent to me. I didn't see any real references, specific references to that. Now, maybe they're in there and they'll understand that, but it wasn't real apparent to me. And I'm just wondering if we might want to modify that a little bit to be a little more specific. Because I know that they're aware of this issue. I just want to make sure that they don't miss it and think that's a different issue.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue with putting in a specific cost to us is it can vary quite a bit. And I think it's a little hard to pinpoint. If you look at the direct costs of the transports, it probably doesn't look like a whole lot and compared to the whole county budget. But it's really more of an impact than just the transporting cost. I mean, it's the disruption, it's the impact on the person that they're transporting. There's a lot of different factors other than just cost that go into it.
So you don't have to be real specific on cost. I just thought there needed to be a little more explanation so that they could easily identify this as this is an issue with us transporting people to Winnebago.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Chairman Long brought up a good point, but I think that this resolution is very much more broad than just the point of the transportation to Winnebago. I think it covers, they've probably got about 10 issues within the concept of mental health that they're pushing, and that's what I think they'd meant to have by this resolution, was a very broad resolution. And it's outlined in some places where they talk about youth and they talk about different facilities and other things. So Chairman Long was exactly right that the one issue that he pointed out is a problem, but I think this is a much broader resolution than just for that.
Supervisor Counter.
I think the two things too is, when we do these transport missions, it also involves having 2 deputies that are gone on a 9-hour stint. It's about 4 hours each direction and then 1 hour in processing time. So you're taking people that would normally be capable of doing patrolling and things, what their primary position job is, and taking them out of commission for these transport missions. The other thing, when you send people more than halfway across the state for treatments, the other issue becomes that it's very difficult to get family support channels to be capable of being there to help understand the mission, what they're trying to do with these patients and to be involved in it. Many of these people may not have access for being able to do Zoom or other means to be able to be involved, and the timing and everything else, where having something more local would definitely, hopefully improve that problem and try to have resolved so that the family support channels can be incorporated in when they're trying to help these people.
Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, Supervisor Fiedler.
I'm not sure if I'm correct in this or not, but maybe I could ask corporate counsel again if she could just bring us up to date. I had the sense that the sheriff's department particularly was, for the most part, trying very hard now not to send deputies down with the person they were assisting, but that we were contracting to do it. Is that generally what we're doing now?
Typically, the initial emergency detention is happening by the deputies or local law enforcement, and then any hearings subsequent to that, so the probable cause hearings or final hearings where the individuals need to be transported here physically, is happening through Talon Transport. And the reason why is because they need a little bit of time to make that request to set it up. And so they're using Talon Transport either for those ones that are planned or for the prison transport, so then court services deputies can be available to do the Chapter 51 transports. But it definitely takes a lot of the deputies' time to do the transport, especially if there needs to be 2 people doing the transport.
Mr. Chairman, are you going to go through a couple of other things, or can we go through a couple of other things as well? If Ken could raise the screen up a little bit so we can see the left-hand side a little bit more. Just for example, on the highway transportation, we're asking for 30% for basic reimbursement for trunk highway maintenance in the county. Right now, do we get about 20% or so, or just a little bit less than that?
Yeah, I would say that's about accurate.
And that's what, a 6-year rolling fee that, or average of costs that the state looks at when they decide what to reimburse, because different counties get reimbursed at different rates. And I would just guess with maybe a couple of things that we're doing, we'll start to see a larger amount of money coming in the near future from the GTA.
Yes and no. So part of the formula change may benefit us, but they have to allocate more money into the GTA. Otherwise, it's just a redistribution of the exact same dollars. So there's 2 factors that go into it. So really, it's the supply side. If that increases, that's when we tend to get more money.
And if I could just continue, I've just got a quick question on each of them. So on the renewable energy, I'm just guessing that that's of importance to us because of what we understand is the case with Xcel Energy and what they're going to be doing with the solar panels, I'll just say to the east and north of Roberts, near other cities. I know that we may or may not have a formal presentation from them at a future board meeting, but could either the corporate counsel or the administrator just quickly tell us what the limits of statute 660401 are that do restrict local regulations, and what we expect will happen in our community development committee and further questioning to Xcel Energy?
Yes, so Wisconsin statute 66.0401 is entitled Regulation Related to Solar and Wind Energies. And basically that statute takes away the power from the local governments to establish strict regulations for wind and solar energy and leaves that up to the Public Service Commission to do. There's different kilowatt and levels of when the county can regulate and when the state regulates under the PSC. And so what I understand from this particular item is maybe some modifications of those statutes to give more local regulatory authority if someone wants to come and put a wind or solar energy system in St. Croix County. Right now there are pretty strict limitations, and if it's over a certain megawatt, then the PSC basically has the control. And I do believe that on the January County Board agenda, there will be a presentation given by the Xcel Energy individuals.
Thank you. Then just a quick question on the real estate transfer fee. I read the material, but my first reaction was, boy, that's a big fee to transfer real estate. I mean, honestly, that was my reaction, particularly if it's a more expensive home. And I would guess there's the same amount of activity involved, whether it's a lower priced home or a higher priced home. And I know that we went through this last year, and State Senator Staffels, I think, was the author of a bill that addressed this issue. And I wonder if corporate counsel or the administrator could just add a little bit more light to this in terms of the necessity of the fee increase and what we as a county get for it, and what the history of this has been relative to our legislative representatives, and whether we think they'll be supportive of this or they think they've dealt with it already.
There was some discussion too about reducing the total fee, changing it from $3 to $2. I think the Real Estate Association has been promoting that idea. And then changing the split on it, which is fine. I mean, whatever they want to do that doesn't cost the counties money, we're fine with. The amount of fees that we collect, because we have a county that has a growing population, we have some very higher priced properties in the county. So the amount of fees that we're collecting actually exceed the cost for St. Croix County for the Register of Deeds office. That's not the case in every county, though, and so that's why on a statewide average, they're definitely looking to keep more of the fees. And if the state has all this extra money, then they can maybe share some. And this is a nice way to do it, by just splitting the costs, because they don't need the 80% for us to do all the work. So that's quite a margin that they got on that.
And Mr. Chairman, I just had one other question. We addressed this issue by basically looking at the WCA proposed resolutions. And then our selections basically came from that list of choices. And I think you folks did a good job of calculating what the top 6 were. But I know in previous discussions, perhaps at this committee, perhaps at other committees, the administrators pointed out that on occasion, very seldom, thank goodness, but on occasion we have a commitment which is exceptionally expensive, particularly for youth under 18 that are suffering from mental health issues. And I wonder if that may or may not be embraced by the first resolution we very generally had on mental health, supporting mental health. But I was wondering if we wanted to go outside the WCA resolution suggestions, if that's the sort of thing, and I'm just going to real roughly suggest, if there's one case, we have one case now and it's costing us $400,000 a year. Basically correct? $480,000 a year. So obviously, if we had 2 or 3 of those, it would bust the budget. So I'm wondering if we would want to craft something. We don't necessarily have to do it now, but perhaps Heather, just off the top of her head, could simply say, in that type of case, we would like to solicit the assistance of the state. So just as they now cover costs for individuals above 18, that they cover it for individuals above 18, and that conceivably, like this case, will cost us $1 million by the time we're done. And we might want to request them to pick up the full share of it, since in principle, they're picking it up for all adults already. Is that basically the correct way to state it, Heather?
Yes, and we actually did pass a resolution in October at the county board for that specific issue. It is not addressed by the psychiatric white paper that you have in here. That's just having more facilities available. So what this issue is as Supervisor Fiedler explained it, when they become an adult, they get picked up by the state. As a minor, though, the counties have to pick that up. And our budget is busted because we have like 5 or 6 that are on these that range from about $250,000 up to the high of $480,000. We actually have a new one that's coming on that's going to be, I don't know, probably $400,000 range. And that one will be on until they turn 18. And so they're 4 or 5 years out from that.
Sure. So I just would say perhaps then the question, since we've already approved the concept at the board level, maybe we'd want to just take, I would just say, a sentence that Heather could craft that reflects what we've already done, if we thought this was a good thing to add to our legislative priorities to get that done, because that's the budget buster in this whole thing. The rest of them are pretty good ones, but I think that would be, since we've already approved it, I don't think it's controversial to do, and we could just ask the corporate counsel to prepare that after the fact. She understands what we're trying to do, I think, and we could move ahead.
I can tell you that the resolution that was passed by the county board was resolution urging the Wisconsin State Legislature to reform the funding model for out-of-home child placements. So that was the resolution that came out of the HHS board and then was approved by the county board in October.
So what I might suggest is that you could supplement number 3 on the list with the resolution that was approved in October on the out-of-home placements. And this will go back to the county board for final ratification, but, you know, after giving you some chance to sleep on it and think about it for a few weeks.
Did you say supplement or replace? Okay, yes, I think that's a great idea, actually.
So I just have a quick thought on this. And I'm sitting here thinking about, not that people's lives aren't worth it, but what are we doing that's costing $400,000 a year times 5, $200,000 to $400,000 or $500,000 a year times 5? If we're having to go to the state to ask for this, just think if every county did this, 72 counties. And just think if Milwaukee County did that, it'd bankrupt the state. Like, thinking about this. I think we're looking at this all wrong, asking the state to pick this up. Where's this coming from? Like, this is HHS? So if this is HHS, how are we not getting an explanation of what this is and why this is? And, I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, we can sit here and say it's insignificant to the budget, but it's not insignificant to the budget. It's a $132 million budget. That's, take 400,000 times 5, that's $2 million. That's almost 2% of our budget. That's massive.
And I can explain that most of these placements, if not all of them, are under CHIPS cases, so Children in Need of Protection and Services, and so they're court ordered from the judge or the judges. And so if there are no placement options, and for one kid, there is only one placement option in Wisconsin for that child, then the court orders that the child be placed there, and we have to place the child there. And so it's an unfunded mandate, basically, at the county level, and there are a lack of resources out there right now in the state of Wisconsin specifically for these placements, which is why we're having these more expensive placements that are in Arkansas, Tennessee, for children that have to be placed out of the state because we can't find a placement here in Wisconsin for them. But they're all the cases that are the high cost cases are subject to court orders from the court.
The first item here would help, right? Because there would be something, it would be additional facilities. So they kind of work together. So the first item is psychiatric residential facilities, and if they serve youth, that's one more place where the children could be placed that would be in Wisconsin. So that's how those work together and mesh together. But to Heather's point, they're court ordered. So it's not even HHS, that's doing it or causing it. It's things that are happening, and the judges are reviewing that and making that determination that this is what's in the best interest of the child. And the costs are phenomenal.
Is this a common, by county, common as of the last 10 years, common as of the last 20 years? Like, when has this become common to have these events?
Yeah, there's been a spike in the last 5 to 10 years in CHIPS cases. Only just this year have we seen any plateauing of it. And really all of our peer counties have noticed the same plateauing of CHIPS cases. What St. Croix County has done to help this is we turned over CHIPS cases to Corporation Counsel, who has one full-time dedicated attorney that just works on CHIPS cases. So instead of it being something that the district attorney's office was doing when they had time, we have one full-time attorney now that's all they do. So that's what we've done to help it, to address these costs, but it's a tough situation.
Supervisor Fiedler, go ahead. Sorry, Supervisor Long.
I don't recall the exact wording of the resolution, but I think maybe the issue is, let's talk to the state and our legislators about the issue. Maybe there are other alternatives and where the funding can be shared that might help alleviate us fitting all the bill. Or maybe it can be graduated in certain ways, or I think the whole thing is just to address the issue so that the state's aware of the impact that it's having, so that maybe there are other funding alternatives. I'm just saying, look at it a little more broadly from our standpoint.
And to the point that Chair Bernie was making before, in 2006, so 18 years ago, the state came in and says, your adult placements are wrecking your budgets. They are costing a lot of money. So we're going to change that model the state's going to pay for all adult placements. Children placements weren't the big issue then because they were so few and spread out. So the state came in and said, well, we're just going to pay for the adult ones. So now we're to the point where the children ones are rising up. And to that same point, they're wrecking county budgets. They're costing a lot of money. And so that's where we went with it, was because that's what was done in 2006.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to, depending on where you think we are in the legislative, in the parliamentary process, I'll try to capture an amendment that will capture what we've just talked about.
We don't have a motion yet, so.
Well, no,
If you want to make the motion to bring it.
I'll make a motion to bring the, I guess, resolution before us, and I have an amendment to it.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Long. Okay.
I think the.
Discussion?
So I would propose an amendment that would basically strike item number 3, which refers to item 45, and then renumber items 4, 5, and 6 as 3, 4, and 5. And then at the end of that, substitute language pursuant to what the corporate council described as our action in October, which provides for reimbursement from the state for youth placements.
Okay, there's a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Long. We'll discuss the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Supervisor Shirley.
Okay, so we can discuss the amendment. I have a general on the rest, but we'll get to that later. Let me think of where I was going here. If we're just talking about the amendment, and I gotta change what I was gonna say. Yes, I think that adding that item is definitely appropriate. I think we need detail. Are we going to go, in general, I think this resolution needs more detail and numbers to it. I know we have these attached pages that go with it, but the resolution itself doesn't mention the attached pages. So I think we need detail in there. If we're gonna go and look at, as far as what Supervisor Fiedler was talking about, adding this as a additional item, we need a number in there. We're gonna go to the state and say, we would like you to reimburse us 50%. Or are we gonna go out and we're gonna ask them for 100%? I think we need that number in these resolutions, otherwise our legislators are gonna look at these and they'll be like, what are they really asking me?
Yeah, I guess the way I looked at it was the resolution is just for our legislative team that's going to go to Madison Legislative Days. The white papers is what they'll actually take with them then and talk to the legislator. Here's the bullet points, we'll leave this white paper with you, that highlights our issues. Yeah. So if that's okay, that was the way I guess I had intended it or envisioned it.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The amendment is approved unanimously. So now we're on to the amended motion for the resolution establishing St. Croix County legislative priorities. Discussion. Supervisor Shirley.
Okay, back to our main motion. I appreciate the work that we did looking through the counties association list and coming up with this. However, I think just as we added an item tonight, I think we almost need another session talking about things outside the box that isn't just counties association items. So I think there's a couple items that we would probably add to this list that aren't on here. So I don't know. I think we have a good start, but my suggestion would be that we maybe hold off on approving this and maybe look at adding a couple other items to it so that we have a full list and then we approve it through, we're done, and then bring it to legislators.
I'm going to comment to that, Supervisor Shirley. So I think if we get this done tonight rather than postpone it and have it hanging out there, at least we have something in hand before the legislative session begins. And we'll work through the process and get it to our legislators after, but I think it's important that at least they know where St. Croix County stands. And I hope the rest of the admin committee will agree on that, at least we can have this in hand for our legislators to start the session. Supervisor Fiedler.
I concur in both your comments and would also just point out timing-wise, the first opportunity to meet with legislators officially is through the CAP program, the Ambassadors Program, and that will meet with legislators about give or take the 20th of January. And if we were to delay it till our next meeting, then by the time we got to the board, we will have missed the first big opportunity to influence our legislators. So I think we're all nodding back and forth, and I think the chairman pointed out the wisdom of maybe moving ahead tonight.
Is there any further discussion on yes, go ahead, Supervisor Counter.
On what's currently for, I know we just changed it up a little bit, but on currently on the renewable energy, one of the things I did do, because I know if I understood right, in January, we're having representatives come in and talk to us a little bit about the St. Croix County project. I did take time and now have been in contact 3 different times with the Public Service Commission regarding the approval process and how things work for this. And one of the things that I had issue of is when we have these large projects like this, it's looking into the future for the decommissioning of these things once they've hit their life expectancy and they start to go down. You know, when we talk about this, you know, you're talking that's about 3,000 panels an acre. And you're talking 6,000 acres, you're over 12 million panels. And from the best of what I've been understanding is the recycling cost per panel, it runs around $100 currently in today's dollars. I don't know what that'll be at the end of these contracts. But I asked the Public Service Commission, do they have any regulations regarding the decommissioning? And they said, no, we don't care. That's not in our contracts or anything else. And I said, well, how do you haven't, these things can be sold out to different entities over time. And what's to say these entities go bankrupt? Then, now is it the county that becomes liable for the decommissioning? This becomes an extreme burden for us if that's what the case is going to be for the future. And then I waited a few weeks and I got a phone call back again. Yeah, we're recognizing that could be a problem. So what, although we don't have regulatory authority currently, the one thing that the representative told me anyway was that we can do public input or do input into this, and they take something that's addressed by the county at a different level than they would a normal person on something like this. But they also suggested that that would be something we may want to address with our legislators and stuff, that we look into this, because one of the things I look at, if you're looking at this as a total package for the life of what this product does, they should create a sinking fund or something that's there so that as this happens, they're accumulating a fund balance that'll be there for that decommissioning time, so that we have somewhat of a little bit of a security in case these businesses go out in the future. So just wanted to add that in.
Thank you, Supervisor Counter. Go ahead, Administrator Wade.
And I think to that point, Supervisor Counter, I think that's an excellent point to that. And we already have a current example of that. When we do a quarry, we have reclamation plans and we have financial requirements so that it's carried out at the end of the project, which can be decades later. So that's an excellent point.
And thank you for that, Supervisor Counter, and thank you for your extra work on that too. Any other discussion on the amended resolution? Any further discussion on the amended resolution? Any further discussion on the amended resolution? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The resolution is approved unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Number 4, review of updated capital improvement requests form, adding ongoing expense reporting. Dustin.
Thank you, Chair Burning. At your request, we are adding an additional section at the bottom of the capital improvement request form. This section will go over any ongoing expenses and revenues that will hit future operating budgets. So this will be provided by staff. They'll give their best estimate on any additional expenses, possibly cost savings, additional revenues that might be involved with the capital improvement project. Ultimately, our goal is to get the board all the info that they need, so when they review the KIP requests, they can, it's not just always the initial cost, sometimes it's ongoing costs or cost savings in some cases that may make or break the approval on those projects. So this section adds that.
And thank you for doing that. And I just want to share with the committee one reason why I asked for this to be is, there was just a couple of really dollar coin sized eyes when we got the operating budget for the new building here. There were some other ones in the past that I know some people were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know we were going to have to add, half an FTE to take care of this or whatever. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to just make it where that comes with any capital improvement plan. That way we, as a board, can see the full picture and can make our decisions based on not just that one-time cost, but if there are any ongoing, or if there's any savings that it creates. Nicely said on that. So, do we need any formal action on that, or is that just really you're just showing us that you did that? That doesn't. Yeah. Okay. There's no action on that. So, go ahead, Supervisor Shirley.
On that last line item, if you can go back to that, I really do like this. I would, if we could add on there on the ongoing revenues and expenses, if approved, and or cost savings. Because I'd like to see that too, if then at least it's listed there.
Are there any other questions for Dustin? Any other questions for Dustin? Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we will go on to requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Any requests? Any requests? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to announcements. Any announcements? Any announcements? Anything fun? Merry Christmas, ho, 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 and a bottle of rum or whatever you decide to do, right? All right, so Merry Christmas, everyone. Date of our next meeting will be January 21st, 2025. And with that, all business items are taken care of, so we stand adjourned.